From day one, we are told who we should be, how to live, and what's acceptable. Before we even have a chance to discover ourselves, our society has already drawn those lines for us. But what happens when those lines are keeping us from knowing and embracing who we truly are? Welcome to Unbox Yourself with Samantha Fox, a podcast about unpacking and unlearning everything that's kept you from living as your true self. Through honest conversations about your internal emotional landscape, sexuality, coming out later in life, relationships, and the journey to self-acceptance, we break free from the boxes we never chose. Hello, Elle. It is so lovely to have you here and to see your face.
Thank you. It's really good to be here. I have been listening to your podcast and it's exciting to be a part of it. So thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you on. And today's episode is Unboxing Gender. And I love that you are the person that essentially I'm going to say is like almost educating me a little bit on this topic, because gender is not one of my specialties, though I have worked with clients that have transitioned from female to transgender and, all the way across the spectrum. So I have worked with people on an emotional level, but I'm not really an expert on the topic in general. So
yeah,
I would love to hear more about your journey with your gender, even going all the way back to when you were younger and how you experienced yourself, gender-wise. So
yeah.
the floor is yours.
All right, thanks. You say that you've, acknowledged that you're not an expert on gender. Like, I'm not either. Like, this is just my own personal experience. And I feel like gender is such a unique thing for every person who's exploring it. So, like, as I talk about me, that's my perspective on me and my knowledge of me as a person, but also, you know, different people have completely different approaches. Different terms mean slightly different things to different people. So it is a really unique and individual thing. I think one of the things that feels the best for me is that this really feels like a full circle place in my life. Like, I can think back to being a little kid and having these moments of gender euphoria that felt like bigger than a girl. And so I'm at a point in my life now where I think at the time that I was working with you, which was a little over a year ago, like we worked together like maybe 18 months to a year ago. I think at that time I was sort of exploring, did I want to use different pronouns? So I'd grown up with she, her pronouns and been raised as a girl. And now I've come out as, I like the term genderqueer because I feel like it feels the most open and expansive to me, and that feels the best. And I also love the term fluid because for me that feels like it really, really fits. um and it feels, yeah, like getting to be at this point in my life feels like I'm coming back to honoring this really old little part in me that had these moments of gender euphoria. I can remember like running around my yard. I used to have long blonde hair and having it like tucked up under my baseball cap and like running around my yard and like feeling like kind of like feeling like a boy when I was a little kid. My first job that I wanted to be was a cowboy, and like for like the boots and like the kind of rugged feel to it. Yeah, so I feel like as an adult, I'm getting to craft a life now. I'm 49, I'll be 50 in October. I'm getting to craft a life now that really honors some of those really early experiences. And I just didn't have terms or words for those. So I feel like I'm so grateful to live in a time and place where language is really evolving and I get to experience representation and language for the things that tell my story. It feels really good.
I mean, that's so interesting, those moments when you were younger and those feelings. And I'm thinking back on my own, because I was really far from being a girly girl, and I would wrestle with the neighborhood boys and climb the
Yeah.
trees and all of those things. So I felt very much like a tomboy, and I liked that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I never was really girly girl, I would say, until probably more puberty age. And then I don't know, I think just all of those expectations of how you're
Yeah.
supposed to show up came in. And there was like makeup and all the ways you're supposed to be as a girl, and I kind of felt like I had to squeeze myself into those
Yeah.
boxes to fit in.
That's such an interesting point that like at the age where like you've kind of aged into makeup, all of a sudden it's just like a given that you're going to wear it. Like yeah, and pressure to wear a bra and like all of a sudden. And I think too, it's like if you did have a chance to grow up with sports, sometimes those opportunities leave your life at the same time you're handed these expectations to be more feminine. Like you sort of, once you hit puberty, it's almost like you lose, society tells you that you kind of lose some of those opportunities. I think I remember having a conversation with you about your mom and how your mom was very highly feminine and very pretty and very into makeup, and like that was really her thing. And um did you feel
Beauty.
yeah, did you feel for you like beauty was a pressure?
I feel like when I came into, I would say around like 13 years old, I think it felt much more experimental at
Uh-huh.
that time. I don't feel like there was any pressure coming from her at that
Hmm.
age, but I felt like, I don't know, like this was just what my friends were into, and we would,
Yeah.
get lots of makeup and put it on and try to figure out how to do it. And I mean, I remember this is quite a memory I have of being at a friend's house and putting on like all this makeup.
Yeah.
And then I was like 2 miles away from my house, and I was walking on the road.
Uh,
And I don't know if I was walking home, but maybe I was walking home. And my father drove by,
uh,
and he passed by, and then he realized it was
like,
me.
oh my God, it's my kid.
And he like yanked the car to the side of the road, and he like yelled at me to get in the car.
God.
And he was just like, "You look like a prostitute,
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, really, I mean, but I had on like caked on, but it was
right.
very experimental. I mean, I think I was like 13,
Right.
12
You
or
don't know what you're doing
13,
at 13. Like, yeah.
I didn't know what I was doing. So, I mean, it certainly was not encouraged in
Yeah.
that way. But I did watch my mom every day put on her face, and she wouldn't even get the mail unless she was fully made up. And I mean, my mom was just so gorgeous. Like she didn't
Yeah.
need anything, but she wouldn't leave the house without it. And then as after I got through that stage of, very quickly got rid of the makeup, it stopped with the makeup, then my mom would say to me, it wouldn't hurt to just put a little color on your cheeks and a little color on your lips. Like it wouldn't hurt. So I would get
Yeah.
that often, like in
Uh-huh.
encouragement, but I didn't really listen to it. I
Uh-huh.
just
Yeah.
kind of, yeah, I did my own thing.
Yeah. I think for
Yeah.
me growing up, like I grew up in Colorado. I came of age during the grunge era. So it's like everybody, regardless of their gender, looked like Kurt Cobain. We all wore flannels and ripped up jeans. Like it was not it was not really a girly girl time. And I was like, for me, I was like, thank God. And my parents had moved from Birmingham, Alabama, and I'd grown up in Denver, so I was like so glad I didn't have to grow up in Birmingham because that would have been really hard. But I think I didn't really feel pressure to wear makeup and like do my hair and dress a certain way until I really got into my professional career. And I feel like I'd always worn pretty androgynous things. And for me, those felt like great clothes to wear. And I loved the way it felt to wear them. And
Hmm.
I can remember getting to a point where I felt like I had to give them up because I needed to like look like a professional. I'm air quoting, look like a professional. And I just remember feeling like I didn't know how to dress. Like I almost felt like I had to go out and buy clothes that looked like professional woman, like it was a costume. And I just remember looking around and being like, what do professional women look like? Because it, like, I didn't even have a concept in my head of how to look professional and look non-gendered. Like, I couldn't, early in my career, I just couldn't wrap my head around it. And I remember feeling sad that I had to buy women's clothing for the first time, really. When I was younger, I went shopping in vintage stores all the time and bought like old men's clothing, like from the 70s. And like I liked wearing all this, vintage throwback men's stuff. Um, and I just remember feeling like, well, that's not appropriate for the workplace. Like I just didn't know how to integrate that part of me. So I felt like I had to give it up.
Yeah, and so this was sort of like your own internalized,
Yeah.
idea of what you need to look like. And I'm just curious about your mother, and
Yeah.
had you seen her in professional clothes, and had she ever come to you? I mean, I know you came to the point where like you went shopping and got your own stuff that you liked, but what about before that?
Yeah, well, I think my whole life I got a lot of flack from my Southern family for the way that I dressed. Like there was a lot of pressure to look more feminine from like the extended Southern Alabama family. And my grandmothers they always had a lot to say. My hair was critiqued, the way I walked was critiqued. So just sort of like a lot of pressure from the greater family to present as more feminine, and pressure from my mom to present as more sort of socially appropriate, meaning look more ladylike. But she didn't
Yes.
really, my mom wasn't a big makeup wearer and
Okay.
wasn't particularly girly, but she wanted a daughter that looked like a nice girl. And I wore, you know, clothes with holes in them and old men's old clothing. And like my favorite t-shirt was this shirt that said, I ran into Tammy Faye Baker at the airport, and it had like this smashed like smear of women's face makeup on it. And I remember my mom was like, you cannot wear that out of the house. It's my favorite shirt.
Oh my God, that's so good.
It was the best. So like, I liked wearing these huge baggy shirts. And I think my mom wanted me to look nice instead of look, I don't even know what word she would have used to describe me, but I looked too casual, I think,
Yeah.
in her eyes.
Yeah.
And so I think it wasn't pressure to look more girly. It was pressure to not look like whatever that was that I was showing up as, and look like a nice girl. Um
So how did that land for you? Like how did you experience yourself in those times where this felt like you, when you'd go shopping and you'd pick these clothes and they felt good to you, you'd put yourself in them, but then you'd be getting these messages from the world around you that you don't look right for what we want you to look like, and you don't walk right, and you don't carry yourself right, and you're too casual, and you're not looking like a nice enough girl.
yeah.
And like how did that how did you feel? Like how did you manage that emotionally?
I think I was lucky because I grew up in a place that already was pretty culturally casual. Colorado just does not have that many formal things that happen. So it's not like Alabama where you have to look like a nice girl all the time. So I remember having like a wardrobe that I would put in my suitcase to go to Alabama, which were like my nicest clothes, like the nice girl clothes. And then I'd have like the Colorado clothes that I wore, but I would not take my Colorado clothes to Alabama when I went to visit my family like every summer, because I knew that they just, people would be shocked to see these, you know, they probably just looked like trashy clothes, like not nice enough. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Um,
messy. So you
yeah,
could
yeah.
see from that early age, it sounds like you could kind of
Yeah, kind of like middle school, high
separate
school.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're able
Yeah.
to be like, okay, like these people want me to look like this. So when I go over here, I'm going to bring
Yeah.
these clothes and look this way for them. But in my day to day life, I'm here and all my friends look like this. And even though my mom's saying this, like, it's fine. I can look casual. I can wear what I want and I feel okay about it.
Yeah, I felt like in my young life there were a lot of things that I acquiesced with my family, my Denver family, my family of origin, and a lot of stuff I kind of bent on. But my clothes were something that I felt pretty consistently that I held firm on, and I tried as much as I could to get to wear the wardrobe I wanted to wear. And I think, both my parents worked. They weren't around in the morning when I got dressed and left. So no one was really around to freak out about what I was wearing. And I took advantage of that. I had a top hat that I wore, like
Oh, I
my
love it.
dad's vintage cords from the 70s. Like those were great. Yeah, so like lots of stuff that I just found in the garage that I was like, oh sweet, I'm gonna wear this. So I think, yeah, like had I been born in a different time and in a different place, I think I would have had a lot more painful struggle with that. But I definitely remember it. Like, I definitely remember the times when I felt pushed to, you know, look more like a girl, or that like my
Yeah.
version of girl didn't fit. Like you're a girl, you need to look like one. And,
You need to
just
fit in the
this,
box.
yeah, just this idea that the presentation of girl was a really narrow range of what was acceptable, as opposed to getting to be girl all over this spectrum of what your hair looks like, what your clothes looked like, how you walked and talked. And, at that point in my life, I thought of myself as a girl, and it felt like the way I lived didn't fit into people's expectation, or the adults in my life, their expectation of girl. My peers all kind of looked like me. So it was really more of an adult and of something that's pushed down
Problem.
on you. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how lucky for you that you grew up in that environment where you were surrounded by peers that really mirrored you. I mean, that
Yeah.
is just, yeah.
Well, it's interesting because for me it was gender expression, but for everybody else it was just sort of like, this is like what we all wear. I mean, I looked like everybody else, but I felt different in the clothes. And I was
Mm,
a theater kid, and there were times where I played boys' parts. And so I got to, or like, men's parts. And so I got to wear these costumes that I was like, yeah, like it felt great to wear that clothing. And I really felt this part of me just kind of like rise up. And I can remember moments. Do you remember that Disney cartoon of Robin Hood that had the fox that played Robin Hood? That
yes.
was like, that's what my gender felt like, sort of this like
Mm,
archer fox. And I just can remember like seeing that and feeling like that's what my insides feel like.
mm.
And yeah, having these moments for sure that felt gender bendy. So then it was hard to enter the professional world and feel like, well, I got to clean this up, and not really know how to look like myself in a professional setting.
So
And
that's where
yeah,
that was a place where I mean, you had outside pressure on you before that, but that was when the first time you actually felt like you were coming into conflict internally
yeah,
with
I
like,
felt like
oh, I have to.
I was the one who chose to put limits on my clothing at that point, because I just couldn't see how the way I liked to dress would work in a professional setting. And a lot of the jobs I'd had, I was outdoors with kids. And so for a long time, I didn't have to dress up. And then when I
Mm-hmm.
finally moved, I worked in a pediatric neuropsych clinic. And then I finally moved into a position where I was like meeting with attorneys and working with psychologists. And like we needed to look really nice and like formal professional clothing. And I remember having this sort of crisis of like, oh God, I have to start wearing women's clothing. And just going out and buying, like having to buy dresses for work and kind of being like, I guess this looks like what a therapist wears. Like, I just, yeah. And there were times in my life, like in high school, where I wore dresses. In college, times where I wore dresses, but my preferred thing was like for sure kind of casual androgynous clothing. So, yeah, there was a lot of grief around that I think I didn't really understand. Um, I just felt like I kind of had to grow up and look like a woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what society tells us.
Yeah.
So
And,
it makes sense.
Sam, going through your program and working with you and doing the piece on compulsory femininity was
Mm-hmm.
huge for me. It was hugely validating to realize how many messages and how much pressure we absorb just without even really realizing it. There was a lot about your program that I loved so much, and I felt like those pieces really analyzing historical messages, cultural messages, religious messages, messages from our families, all of that really helped me see myself in context. And it was an opportunity to really give myself a lot of compassion, like my younger self, a lot of compassion for kind of what they did to make it through and try their best to understand and advocate within all of that toxic and restricting messaging. That was those parts of your program really resonated for me. I'm so glad I went through them.
Oh, I'm so glad too.
Yeah.
And I know you were sharing with me that prior to the program, you were using she, they pronouns. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I was kind of test driving they a little bit to see what it felt like. And the more, sometimes you give yourself a part and the more space you give that part, the more it grows into the space you give it. And you're like, okay, this is a bigger thing than I realized. Yeah. Yeah.
And so was it after the program then that you changed your pronouns completely to they, them pronouns?
Yeah. I mean, I just sort of dropped she
Drop the she. Yeah.
and started telling people that I used they them pronouns and then started
Mm-hmm.
just sort of gently correcting people and, kind of stepping in gently to advocate for that. And so I think it's been maybe about a year and a half that I started using they, them pronouns. The last really serious professional job that I had, I used those pronouns at work. I was out at work. I had to dress formally for work. I went to these important meetings and needed to look a very nice professional formal level of dress. And it was really, really fun to do that in the queerest way I possibly could, to
Oh, I
find
bet.
clothes that fit the dress code and looked like me. And I really, in that last job where I needed that wardrobe, really gave myself the challenge of how can I really bring my queerness into this dress code. And got it was so much fun. I really,
Oh
really
my God,
enjoyed
that
it. Yeah.
sounds so fun. I would love that.
I did too. I got compliments on my shoes all the time. I like to build my outfits from the shoe up. So that was really fun. Yeah. Yeah. So it was good. And there were times where there were certain men that I know felt uncomfortable with my pronouns. So when I had meetings with them, I would like be as queer as possible in those meetings and just really like amp it up. It was like wear a tie that day. It was really fun.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. They were squirming, I'm
Yep.
sure.
Yeah, they did. Um, but yeah, that was fun. So, Sam,
Yeah.
you mentioned to me that you felt like earlier in your life, you kind of had a more feminine look. I might not be using the words right. So, and then as you became more kind of into your identity as a queer person, the way you dressed shifted. What was that like for you?
Hey there, I'm just popping in mid podcast episode for any of you out there that are wondering, what program is it that Elle did? What is it that Elle is talking about? And I just want to let you know, Elle joined the Unbox Your Sexuality program. If you are interested in unpacking, unlearning, and then unleashing your authentic self, check the show notes. The link to the program is there. For those of you out there that are bisexual and you are in a hetero passing monogamous relationship, and you realize after you got into that relationship that you also are attracted to women, and you don't know where to go with that, you don't know who to talk to about it, or where you can even just express yourself and have others understand how that feels and mirror back to you what you're feeling as really normal for many, many people, check out the link below in the show notes to the Bi Life. This is a safe space and community for bisexual women where we explore and support one another in community. Thanks for being here. Now back to the show.
So, as I said, when I was younger, I was very much of a tomboy. I was
Yeah.
covered in dirt. I was
Yeah.
digging. I was getting worms and turtles and frogs. And,
Yes.
I was just out in nature doing all that stuff and loved it. Like I had
Yeah.
that same feeling of just like, oh, this is so me,
Yeah.
like, yeah. Very,
Yeah.
yeah.
We're shaking our
then,
shoulders world like it's so me. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I came into this, this age of coming into my adolescence. And, I think a lot of it had to do with, for me, I have a sexual abuse history. So what I think for me kind of happened was when I came into my adolescence and I noticed that I had power. I had some power with men.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it kind of like grew this like feminine seductress kind of that was very powerful. And I got a lot of attention, not only from men, but also from friends for it.
Yeah.
That were just, they were just kind of like, oh my God, will you teach me? Like, you can get any guy you want, you know exactly what to do. Like, how do you do it? And I felt very powerful.
Sure. Yeah.
In this and
ability.
It
sounds like you got a lot of validation for that. Yeah.
Got a lot of validation from it.
Yeah.
And it felt just like this control mechanism for me that wasn't particularly fulfilling other than giving me a sense of control. So it was never like I felt great and I fell in love and this was the best person. It was I would lose interest. It didn't matter. It was much more about the control. So there was there was a piece of femininity that got tied into that.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. Like, cause it was part of just the seductress.
Yeah.
But even then I have to say, even with that, like I look back on some of the pictures and I have one of them posted on TikTok where I have on these huge cargo shorts with suspenders and I'd wear like, Timberland boots.
Yeah.
And the cargo shorts were like ripped and they had like paint on them, but then I would have like something feminine in there, like the tank top. And maybe like hoop earrings. So I would be, I was into that bending, like kind of like pushing a little bit against what I was supposed to be wearing and what girl normally would be wearing. So it was a little edgy. Like I had a little
Yeah.
edginess.
Yeah.
And always from, I'd say from like maybe 17, 18 forward, I really felt that. But I didn't really think of it in terms of gender. And I didn't even think of it really in terms of being like a tomboy or anything, because I think I just was so conditioned. I mean, I was so very conditioned that, I missed all the signs. Like there was 1,000 signs even that I was gay, and I missed all of those too. So between the conditioning and between the abuse, I think I just missed all the signs of everything. And then I got married. And when I got married, my husband would say things to me, like we'd be going out for a business dinner.
Yeah.
And part of why I didn't like to dress up very feminine was because I would get more attention as a woman, and I would get more of his attention in a sexual way, which I did not want.
Oh, yeah, I see. Yes.
So once I got married, I started wearing very baggy clothes.
Yeah.
And really just I did not want to draw that attention to myself, because I think even though it rose to consciousness and then it quickly got pushed down, there was a sexuality piece happening for me, like pretty much right after I got married. And so, he would say, we'd be going out to dinner with business colleagues of his and whatnot. And we'd be getting ready, and I'd walk out in what I'm wearing, and he would look at me and he'd say, can you put on something nicer?
Yeah.
Could you put on something more feminine? Because I'd come out in like jeans and a sweater or whatever.
Yeah.
He was always, and it just, I don't know, there was something for me. And even today, I mean, I still feel very youthful in my dress.
Yeah. You have such great style. I love your style.
Oh, thank you. But I seriously wear the same thing today that I would have been wearing when I was like 18 or something,
Yeah.
And so, I felt very constricted by this need to like show up in this clothing and look a certain way, but I did it when I had to.
Yeah.
And I wasn't working at that time, so it was really just to show up for him. And it wasn't until it was really interesting. So I went through this interesting thing with my sort of gender expression.
Yeah.
Which was when I came out, I became very feminine. So I started to wear skirts, and I felt I wanted to wear like ruffles and like I don't know, just like I came into this this feminine part of me came out. I think that had been repressed for so many years because I didn't want to attract attention.
Right. Yeah.
But now I was happy to attract attention.
Yeah.
And the first part of me that came forward was this very feminine, very soft. I mean, I look at pictures of me right after I came out, and I'm just like, I don't know, I'm just like in the garden smelling the flowers in like a flowy skirt. And,
like, did you feel joyful at that time? Like an experience?
So joyful.
Like joyful
so
femininity
joyful.
Versus feeling like it was expected. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
It was totally just natural, organic, and joyful. It's like, I'm going to celebrate my like femininity to the fullest with another woman who also loves my femininity. It was just like, it was coming out, pouring out of me. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then interestingly, over time to now, so it was like 23 years ago, I mean, I really don't feel feminine anymore. And I think I have a little femininity that's maybe in my movements, like maybe in the way I walk or the way I move my hands or whatnot. But like, I mean, I am not really comfortable in a dress. I am not comfortable in heels. Yeah. I feel really weird in makeup.
Yeah.
And I feel more comfortable in casual, like you when you were younger, or something a little bit like a more androgynous style.
Yeah.
And I don't feel my femininity, but it's interesting because it doesn't, I don't know, like it doesn't register for me as like they, them, or
you still feel like
he,
she,
or
her. Yeah.
Yeah, like I
I
don't
think
know.
that's great. Like, why?
Okay.
Like, I mean, I think it's amazing that she, her, and woman can look like whatever you want to look like. You know, like, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it feels right, but it's really a huge it feels like a very big shift has happened over the years where
Yeah.
I've let my armpit hair grow out. I've let my
Yeah.
leg hair grow out,
Me?
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah,
Yeah. Like
exactly.
I just and it's interesting because I get like really strong reactions even from queer people
Hmm.
about that, which
Hmm.
I find really interesting, you know. So I don't know. I like to bump up against all the edges and just see what's happening around those edges for
Yeah.
myself.
Okay, well then I have a question for you. Um,
Yeah.
what are some things you do on a daily basis that like just like feel queer and feel gender bendy? Like you mentioned you stopped shaving your armpits. Like what else is like almost like a micro statement about like I do this to feel queer. Like one of mine is
Yeah.
I never wear matching earrings. Like I have 5 piercings and I just wear like whatever goes in there because it feels queer
I
that
love
way.
that.
Yeah.
I love
And then
that.
also if you lose an earring, no problem.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, probably I would say I wear my like caps, my little hats that I like to wear.
Yeah.
Those feel very queer, and I just like throw them on,
Do you
and
mean like the
you
little
know what?
beanies that
My
you wear?
beanies. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Yep.
have them in like every color. I wear the
Uh-huh.
beanies. I mean, I feel so queer all the time. Like I never don't feel queer.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I wear my little tie around my neck, which is like
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what that is, but I've been doing
Yeah.
it for like over 10 years, so
Yeah.
it's my thing, you know.
Yeah.
It's my queer thing that I do.
Yeah.
You know, I love cutting my nails really short. That's very queer for me. Having my nails really short, not
Yeah.
getting them done. I feel like it's for me. It's kind of like what's
Yeah.
really organic. I let my grays come in.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know. These kinds
Yeah.
of things. Like I just want to be fully real, you know, like it
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
feels like, and that strangely feels a little bit queer because it's not that easy to find people that are okay with that, you know?
I've been dating someone new. I met them in February. They are amazing. And we were
Aw.
having, oh my God, I cannot wait to tell you about them. But we were having this conversation about how like queer people just authentically do the coolest stuff that's like their individual quirky thing. Like they have jobs that you're like, that's your job and it's such a cool job. Or they have interests that you're like, what? And it's like the coolest, unique individual thing. And we were talking about like it's hard to compare that to straight life. And the person I've been dating has lived, I think, a queer life for a very long time. And I lived in a straight world and tried to, make that work for a long time. And I just remember feeling like in the straight world, looking around and being like, is this it? And it was like everyone was just settling for the most middle of the road, the lowest common denominator. And it just felt so boring. And we were having this conversation earlier today. We had lunch together. We were having this conversation about how, like, the queer world is just everybody is so their own person, and it's like it just feels so good. And I went to this festival. I went to the Out and Wild festival recently, and just got back from it. And just everybody I met was doing the coolest shit. It was the best. Like, it was so
I
great
love
just to
it.
hear what people do, and it's so unique. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like total out of the box living in every
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know. I feel like it's just exiting the expectations of society. For me, it's like exiting like obligations and living with like a
Yeah.
life full of obligations. It's just really deconstructing all of it and just putting in what works for me. And, you know, some people would say, wow, that sounds really selfish of you, you know? And I just think that that is so expansive and it's such a beautiful way to live. And it doesn't mean that I don't show up for all those people that are in my life that I love and that are, that mean a lot to me, but I'm not going around the world doing what I'm supposed to do and what people think I should do and showing up the way they want me to. Like, I left that back long ago,
Yeah. Yeah. And you
And I
fought
think
so
being
hard to get
queer,
there.
I fought so hard to get there. I really did. I really, really did for so many years.
We're sending love back to younger Sam, who fought so hard to get where you are now. Give Sam some love.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That is really something I have been doing a lot of. And I really think my program came out of living through all of that.
Mm-hmm.
That is where the Unbox Your Sexuality program literally was birthed by the difficulty of the life that I lived for such a long time.
Yeah.
And it happened at a specific point in time where I no longer was in this agreement with my ex-husband.
Yeah.
So the minute I started Lesbian Curiosity Coach and the program and speaking out was the minute I was freed, but I had been 17 years, I had been silenced.
Yeah.
Going through, I had very, very young kids when I got divorced. So yes, I mean, young Sam needs a lot of love and compassion. So yes, thank you. I'll take it.
Yes.
So tell me just a little bit about now that and I want to understand this. So genderqueer and fluid.
Yeah.
And then people also use non-binary.
Yeah.
And does that not really resonate for you as much as the others?
I mean, I often just sort of use non-binary because people know what that means. Like, it's become part of general lexicon. Yes. Whereas people don't, when I said gender nonconforming, gender fluid, gender queer, people didn't really understand what I meant. And I think again, this is kind of an individual by individual thing. What feels like the term that, when it lands on you, you're like, oh yeah, this one's mine. And I think for me, I just like terms that feel the most expansive and the least labely. And I feel like non-binary, just, this is my personal opinion, non-binary still feels like it's saying what I'm not versus saying what I am. And I like gender queer and gender fluid because it's a positive focus on what I want to expand into versus what I'm refusing to do anymore. And for me, that feels better. And I'm dating someone right now who is also genderqueer, and they love the term androgynous. That feels really good to them. They also use they, them pronouns. And then, I've met, like, one of my really closest friends is transitioning and has had surgeries so that their body looks different. They're taking hormones. They feel like they don't really care what terms are used and what pronouns are used. That's not something that matters to them. And so, I just think it really is an individual kind of thing. But for me, I like a term that feels like I get to stretch and expand into it. And it feels creative to me, which matters a lot.
Yeah.
I think when that word fluid landed in culture, I was like, it just was like fireworks went off in my head. And I thought, that feels like me. That kind of experience of sort of getting to exist all over this gender spectrum. And I think too, I remember feeling like for a while I was trying to figure out, am I just more masc presenting? Like a more masc presenting she? And is that who I am? And it just took a little time of sort of testing out pronouns and trying to figure out, like, what really feels deeply good and authentic. And they, them, just once I got used to the grammar in it and I stopped thinking of it as like, I'm using they because it doesn't mean she and it doesn't mean he. But I started thinking about, I'm using they because it represents a collective in my identity and sort of a more than one, and it just felt like it represented nuance and complexity
Mm-hmm.
and uh, a group of ideas that felt really good to me. And that's when that really felt like it landed. Um,
Oh,
and it
I
just
love
took a
that for
little
you.
time. Yeah, it took a little time to kind of let it settle in and, like you talked about, like get curious and experiment and see how it feels and just test it and see what feels good. I mean, I think that's why it's so good to let kids have experiences testing out wearing different kinds of clothes and experimenting with what they look like, because it's a chance for them to discover what feels like them and what doesn't. And you might test
Mhm.
something out and feel like, yeah, I tried it and that didn't feel like me. And like, that's more information about who you are. So I think we all need time to sort of, figure things out. You don't always know right away. And it's good to take some time to mess around with something and sort of be like a little artist in your life that paints around a bit and sees what comes out of it and what feels like it's a fit versus feeling like there's not room for experimentation, or there, like an expectation you have to be certain or you have to know right away or it's not going to change over time. I feel like we're creatures that evolve, so that
Yeah,
means that you should experiment and mess around a little bit.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sad, just thinking about, most of society really everywhere in the world, I think, just has these constructs that are so intense, and there's not a lot of that spaciousness that you're talking about to experiment and play around. Or if you do, it's very like, it's not supported and it's not encouraged and it's not celebrated by your family members necessarily. I'm talking about most of society now
Yeah.
in a very big term. Certainly there are places, that happens, but it's such a world of like the certainty and the knowing and the right and wrong and sort of like the binaries and,
Yeah.
black and white of everything. And I love the way that you're talking about this. And I think, wow, can you imagine if that had been really supported and nurtured for
Yeah.
us
Yeah.
when we were growing up by our families? And, I mean, who knows what, I don't know, just who knows what could have been. And I mean, I'm happy with where I am now, but gosh, I sure lost a lot of years
Right.
really trying to fit into what society said I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I do have a lot of feelings about that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. You mentioned your grief, just having to go through feeling that grief. Is there anything more you can say about that for people out there that are kind of, coming to terms with this? They are starting to experiment. They are starting to, kind of really feel into what feels right for them. And anything that you would want to share about the need to feel all the different feelings as you're going through this process that you've gone through to arrive full circle where you are today?
Oh, that is such a great question. Gosh, I feel like it's such a blend of emotions, and I feel like for me, sometimes I feel like I'm just all over the map with grief. I mean, I definitely remember grieving at the start of my professional life where I started existing in more serious environments. Like, well, I don't even like the term, like, who's to say working with little kids is not a serious environment? That's such important work. But once stopped working with 4-year-olds and started working with lawyers, like, but I would say a 4-year-old is just as important as a lawyer. But once I started existing in these spaces where a certain level of dress was expected, then I just remember grieving the loss of getting to dress like what felt best to me, but also I didn't understand, well, I could have worn the clothes men wore and it was appropriate for the environment. I wasn't at a place yet where I saw that. So, you know, I mean, I think for me, I have a lot of compassion for myself with looking back at that. And I grieved at the time. Now I just think, you were in process, Lee Ellen, and younger versions of you were doing the best they could with the information they had in the time and place that they were in. And they made the decisions that got you to the place where you are now. I'm trying to think in terms of gender, if I had as much grief around things. I think maybe I was so unaware that I didn't even know it was a moment I could have grieved. Like, I look back at times where I chose to wear certain things because it had a gendered expectation. And I just remember being like, well, them's the rules, gotta follow the rules, and not really even thinking about the fact that I could have worn something completely different. Um, I think for me now, getting to a point where I don't have any more gender holdouts. Like, I don't feel like, oh, if I'm going to wear this man's button down shirt, I have to have long hair to like balance it out. Or if I'm going to have short hair, I better wear a lot of makeup to kind of like balance it out. There were times where I did that just to sort of soften the way I was presenting. And now I just feel like I'm just going to go for the gusto. Like, whatever I want to look like, that's the way I'm going to look. And I'm not going to soften my look to sort of fit in with what other people expect. And for me, that is really healing and it feels really, really good. Yeah, so I guess I don't feel as much grief around gender as I do around some other things. I think like you, I had a coming out story that was just a long process because there was so much early trauma that I had to work through. And I'm pansexual and genderqueer. There weren't even words for those things. So it just took such a long time to figure out who I was because I didn't have any representation. I didn't have any knowledge that there was something other than female, lesbian, male, gay man, and or straight person. Um, and then I had so much early trauma, like so much of my early life was just behavior to keep me feeling safe, that it took a long time to unlearn those things and kind of be in a space that was safe enough that I could start dismantling that. And it took me, until my mid 20s that I had enough control over my life that I had gotten myself to spaces where I could start kind of taking apart these like this wall of coping mechanisms that was in place. And I just feel like until you're safe, who's to expect that you know yourself really well? All your energy is just going into protecting yourself, and so much time and
Yes.
energy goes into that. Like, how can you be expected to know, to even have time to understand and know who you are yet? So, um, I grieve the trauma that I went through, and um, and I also have so much compassion for myself and kind of how I got myself to where I am now. I mean, I feel like I spent 20 years building up these defenses. Then, like 10 years working through one level of trauma, then 10 years working through the next level of trauma. Then I came out and I was like, oh, I'm super gay. And then, it was just a matter of starting to heal myself and like build a life that centered my gayness. And that just, that's my unique story and it takes time. So I think for me, yes, I grieve. And I also feel so fucking proud of myself. Like looking back
Yeah.
on younger versions of me and like what I did to care for myself and build on what younger versions of me had done to get myself here is pretty incredible, honestly. Like, um, I've gone to see a couple new therapists, and when I start talking, they're like, everyone is always like, "How are you not more fucked up?" I'm like, "Thank you." Like, but like,
because you've done the work. I mean,
yeah,
you've really done so
yeah.
much work.
And I did start going to therapy really young. I did.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so I think I'm in a space in my life right now where I'm experiencing so much healing that it just feels really, really great and really joyful. And yeah, like my life has just tipped into a place where I'm learning how to center my queerness in ways that are going to last for a long time, and saying no to things that just don't work for me anymore, and really fine tuning professionally what I want to do, and saying no to stuff I'd done previously to really focus on a specific niche that I would like to work in. Building friendships. This new relationship that I'm in is absolutely incredible. It is the most healing space that I've been in. So I'm dating someone who's also non-binary, and they are one of the strongest people I've met. Like, they just so have it together and are so grounded and such a peaceful person. And the two of us feel like other relationships we've had, we've existed sort of in, or I'll speak for myself. I don't want to speak for them, but I feel like in certain relationships I've been in, I've existed like in this place of my gender. And then the next relationship, I'm over here and I'm like, oh, I'm getting to experience other parts of myself. This relationship with someone who is also really interested in expanding into their gender fully, I feel like I exist as my expansive self fully with this person in this relationship. And there's all this space to experience gender bendy intimacy. And I mean, like, friendship intimacy, emotional support, intellectual intimacy, sexual intimacy, like all of it is a space to experience expanded gender and a full sense of self. And it's deeply healing for both of us. And it's so much fun.
Oh,
It's like a miracle. Honestly, like I could gush about this person for another hour. It's it's really incredible. Yeah. It's I've never experienced anything like this.
I
Yeah.
am so thrilled for you. I mean, I sat with you through some dark times.
Yes,
So,
you
I mean,
did.
yes.
Yes, you did.
So,
Yeah.
to see you in this place, I mean, the energy is just coming off of you. It's
Yeah.
like the joy is like seeping out of your pores.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't be happier for you. And, I mean, just you deserve it, like just in all the work that you've done to like find this person with whom you can experience all of yourself all of the time in all the ways. I mean, it just sounds so beautiful, really, just so beautiful.
It really, really is. And it's just kind of
Yeah.
blowing my socks off. And yeah, I hope you get to meet them sometime, Sam, because they're so amazing. And
Oh, I
I'm
would love that.
I'm really, really like deeply, deeply aligned and like deeply joyful and deeply at peace. And it's just so much fun. Like, it's really
Oh,
amazing. Yeah, yeah.
I'm so thrilled for you, really, so
Thank you.
thrilled.
I am too. Thank you so much for talking to me about all these things. I loved it. Loved it.
I loved having you, and it's always a pleasure to connect with you and keep me updated.
I will, for sure. I will, for sure.
Thank you for spending this time with me on Unbox Yourself with Samantha Fox. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps more folks find these conversations. If you're ready to unbox from something that's keeping you stuck, I would love to support you. You can find the application to the show at unboxyoursexuality.com. Let's stay connected. Find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Lesbian Curiosity Coach.
Give me a follow and join the conversation. Remember, we only have this one time through. Why not unbox yourself and let your true self shine in all its beautiful glory?